We now know who the beasts are, and there's a lot of doctrines out there about Antichrist and 666, so let's examine those doctrines a little more closely. First of all, we're going to ask what the mark of the beast is. I'm going to read Revelation 13, 14 through 17. I've already read this, but I want to read the passage in context so that you get the feeling of the whole passage. And the beast with two horns deceiveth them that dwell on the earth. We know that's the Christian nations that had control of the Holy Land during the Crusades and also during the British Mandate. Deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which they had power to do in the sight of the beast. We see our modern technology and everything as these miracles. Saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image or a likeness to the beast which had the wound of the sword and did live. Now what do we see in the new jihad? We see a likeness of the first jihad, and it exists before us. And he, this two-horned beast, had power to give life to the image of the beast. And how do we give life to this leopard, bear, lion beast? By buying their oil and strengthening them economically. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And that's what the jihadists and those seriously into Islam are doing today. They're killing Christians and Jews and plan to do that in the whole world. And he, who's the he? It has to be Muhammad, causeth all, both small and great. So this is about Islam, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand and on their foreheads, that no man should buy or sell, and that's the condition of Christians and Jews in the Islamic lands today, save that he hath the mark or the name of the leopard, bear, lion, beast, that's Islam, or the number of his name. So if you don't have the leopard, bear, lion's mark, in other words, if you're not in Islam, you will suffer economic bondage, and that's exactly true. Below is what the Quran says Muslims should do to those of other faiths. I'm reading from Surah 9:29. Fight those who believe not in Allah and his apostle Muhammad, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book. Who are the people of the book? That's us. That's the Christians and Jews. Until they pay jizya, that's a humiliating tax, economic bondage, with willing submission and feel themselves subdued or enslaved. So there you see this verse fulfilled to the letter. Isn't that what Christians and Jews living in the Islamic lands have always suffered? Exactly so. But now what is this mark? Well, first of all, I want to show you, and you need the graphic, it's an invisible mark, and we can prove it scripturally. All biblical visions are figurative. Therefore, the marks described in visions are also figurative. Let's go back to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel was a contemporary prophet to Daniel, and in Ezekiel 9, verses 4 and 6, we read the following. And the Lord sent unto an angel clothed in white, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark on the foreheads of men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in their midst thereof. Slay utterly old and young, both maid and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which is before the house of the Lord. Brethren, if we are walking with the Lord, don't we sigh and cry over the abominations committed in our midst? You know, we rub elbows with sin every day, so we sometimes get a little careless about what we see and what we do and what we say. But truly, if we're walking with the Lord and recognize the utter degradation in our land and in the surrounding lands and in Europe, we should indeed be sighing and crying over these abominations, this gross turning away from God and from His Word. Now this passage in Ezekiel, chapter 9, verses 4 and 6, was given to a prophet. So this prophet is seeing into the spiritual world. He's seeing a vision. He's seeing these angels, and he's not seeing something physical. He's seeing what's taking place in the spiritual world. Now the writer of Chronicles, a historian, writes about the very same incident in 2 Chronicles 36:17. Therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men, listen, it's almost the same words, with the sword in the house of their sanctuary. and had no compassion upon young man or maid or old man or him that stooped with age. He gave them all into his hand. Now how come the writer of Chronicles didn't record this mark, but the writer of Ezekiel did? How come the prophet Ezekiel did? Because Ezekiel was having a vision and seeing into the spiritual world, and he could see the spiritual mark on the foreheads of all those inside and groaned over the abominations committed in their midst. But the writer of Chronicles, a historian, was looking around and he saw the destruction of Israel, but he wasn't looking into the spiritual world. So this mark in Ezekiel 9 is a spiritual mark. Now let's talk about the Christian condition today. All Christians are sealed, that's the same as being marked, by the Holy Spirit, but that seal is only visible in the spiritual world. We don't see it. I have Christians around me all day long. I don't see a mark. But look at 2 Corinthians 1:22, who hath also sealed us and given us the earnest of the Spirit in our hearts. Ephesians 1:13, in whom also after that ye believed, ye were sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise, an invisible mark. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of God, whereby ye are sealed unto the day of redemption. Revelation 7:3, we see again this mark spoken of prophetically in a vision, saying, 7:3, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead. You haven't seen a seal on anybody's forehead during the Christian era, and yet we can prove that that verse is taking place, is being fulfilled during the Christian era. Revelation 14:1, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000. That's the Jews of the Christian era, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. We don't see it written all over the foreheads of every Jewish believer. Nevertheless, it's there, and it's visible bright and clean in the spiritual world. Now,